Hey, I'm Liv. I am a survivor of terrorism and an amputee. I'm also an oddball and an occasional pirate. I created this channel to bring you content about being an amputee, a survivor of trauma, and an oddball, and the constant evolution of trying to be a better person. So if that sounds like your jam, then I encourage you to embrace the infamy and subscribe. Seriously, that would help me out so much, and it's free. Today, I am so excited about this video. This is about how to quit smoking with vaping and how to quit nicotine products completely. I am officially 1 year off nicotine 100%. I can't wait to share with you how I did it, tips and tricks, all that stuff. But first, a disclaimer. This video talks about vaping, tobacco products, etc. I'm talking about this regarding how to quit. I am not encouraging anyone to pick this up. Don't. It sucks. You're stuck with this addiction for life, even if you kick the habit. Seriously, even vaping, don't start. If you do want to quit smoking and you want to use vaping to do it, like I did, and you are of legal age for consumption of nicotine in your area, then keep watching. Good? Okay. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about my history with smoking and how I quit. Second, I'm going to talk about what to look for in a beginning vaping device, specifically to switch from smoking to vaping, and I'll give you some recommendations. Thirdly, I'm going to talk about e-juice, how to use it to quit, flavor profiles, and I'll give you some recommendations regarding that. Fourth, I'm going to tell you about my ultimate vapors kit. And fifth, I'm going to go over some tips and tricks. If you would like to jump to any points in the video, I will have the pertinent parts linked in timestamps down below. Know that I'm going to go into super beginner detail about vaping products, so if you already do this and just want some tips on how to quit, you can jump ahead using those. Now let's get on with it. So, I've smoked since I was 13. I'm from Cape Town, South Africa, and you could buy single cigarettes there. So I used to sneak down to the gas station down the road, and I think it was like 50 cents, and then they would give you a single cigarette. It's kind of crazy now to think that they're giving a kid cigarettes, but guess that was okay then. Or I passed for older. I don't know. Anyways, it progressed from there. Next thing you know, I'm 25, living in America, rolling my own cigarettes with American Spirit tobacco when I wasn't smoking it out of the box. I was on about a pack to a pack and a half a day. One day I was driving, I remember, and the thought just struck me that if something happened to me and I was kidnapped or something, I would be more freaked out that I couldn't get a cigarette than the fact that I was kidnapped. This is probably not true, but like I had that thought. Or if I got locked in somewhere, I would be freaky out about the fact that I didn't have any cigarettes rather than like I'm locked in a stairway or whatever it is, you know? Trapped in an elevator. So that thought struck me. I felt out of control and I quit. That day, I went and smoked the rest of my cigarettes at my favorite bar. I remember you could still smoke inside then. I remember sitting there smoking them. That was it. I was done. I was a nightmare for the next 2 weeks. I put on about 30 pounds. It was really, really hard. And that was it. I was an ex-smoker. That was it for a couple years, 3 years, I think. And then I got divorced. Started going out, having fun, picked up smoking again, and pretty soon I was back to a pack and a half a day. 5 years later, I was dating a lovely man who was a non-smoker, now my husband, and I decided to switch to vaping. Gradually, over the next 5 years, I started to reduce the amount of nicotine in my vaping juice. This is one of the beautiful things about vaping, is that you have the ability to do that. So about 5 years later, I read an article about how there were people that were having these terrible lung issues because of vaping. Perhaps you remember that. It came out last year, 2019. Lots of terrible things happening. And just like that, it was like my realization when I was driving years before. That was what I needed. I texted Patrick, my husband, and said, "That's it, I'm quitting." He was like, Memorial Day is next weekend. Do you want to do it then instead? Nope, I'm quitting now, right now. And I did. That was it. I had a much better time of it than when I quit smoking cold turkey. I only put on a couple pounds. I know I'm overweight, but that's another thing entirely that I've struggled with my whole life. But I found this to be much easier than when I quit smoking before. So I'm super psyched to share this with you. Okay, first things first, the components of your Ecig. If you already know this stuff, click the timestamps down below, go to a different point. Okay, so you have your tank, which houses your juice. Inside your tank, you have the coil that filters your juice. And below this, you have your mod that houses your battery. Your mouthpiece and your airflow are up here. You can also get a smaller mod that's the same size as your tank, which is cool. You'll just probably get a little less battery and power. And you can also get a tank that is built into your mod. Don't do that. The success of an Ecig is that you can customize it to find what works for you. If you get something that's built in, then you're limited to that equipment and you can't change it if it's not working for you. And that limits a whole bunch of the benefits. On that same note, don't get a cigarette. You want to start breaking the ritual, breaking that attachment to smoking, traditional analog smoking as it's called. The ritual of finger to mouth, break that. Don't get anything that encourages this behavior. You want to totally break that. Don't get a device that is refilled with cartridges or pods or anything like that. You want to be able to control the liquid that you put in there yourself. This is integral to quitting for me. Once again, this is all my opinion. If you commit to using a pod or a cartridge or something like that, then you're entirely dependent on that little thing. So you're going to want to replicate two specific things when you're trying to transition from smoking to vaping. You want a tight draw and you want a throat hit. Those are the two things that I found most gratifying about smoking and really needed to switch. When you're looking for a tank, you want to find something with a small mouthpiece and an adjustable airflow like this. That's going to help you get that tight draw like a cigarette. You want to avoid anything with a huge mouthpiece like this. Check the reviews for words like clouds or airy. That is a vapor's tank. That is not a smoker's tank. When you see people puffing those big clouds of vapor, that is a vapor's smoking experience and is not, in my opinion, going to be gratifying as a smoker initially. It might be later, but the device that I first used to quit smoking was the Joytech Ego 1 Mega. It's a good size, it's not threatening, it had that super tight draw and a very adjustable airflow. It was specifically probably the tightest draw that I've experienced. It was also an absolute nightmare to fill. The coil that's inside the tank would always come off in the tank, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend this to anyone, but the experience of it really helped me quit or transition. The next tank that I moved to is the one that I would recommend for you. This is the Kangaroo Top Tank Mini. Now granted, I haven't vaped in a year and a lot of my equipment was old anyways, so this stuff is old. There could be new stuff on the market that's amazing, but I don't know if you necessarily need the highest tech stuff. Either way, I hope to give you the information that you need to make these decisions for yourself, so maybe you'll find something amazing. Ooh. And if you do, please let us know down below if you find the perfect tank for transitioning or something that works really well for you. Don't just advertise anything, it better be good, okay? Cool. All right, so the Kangaroo Top Tank Mini. I've linked it down below. It's not the cheapest link. You can find lots, but I have shopped at this store before. It's a My Vapor Superstore, so I know that they're legitimate. This tank is much easier to fill. It is a top fill. You're gonna be looking for that. You want a top fill. It has a tight draw. It has an adjustable airflow. To be honest, most of them do, but it has everything you need. You will also need to get coils. I've listed some coils down below that you can also get from My Vapor Store. Coils and the coil type can also have a huge impact on simulating a cigarette experience. The higher the number, the more cigarette-like it's gonna be. There are all different kinds of coils that you can get. You can get like nickel and ones that respond to temperature control. It's a lot of fancy stuff. Really, there's above arm vaping and sub-arm vaping. Before I quit vaping altogether, I was sub-arm vaping at 0.5 coils. When I started, I was vaping at 1.5. I'm not really sure of the mechanics of it all, but basically you get more of a cigarette-like experience. It is harder for juice to pull through a 1.5 coil and much easier for it to pull through a 0.5 coil. So I would get those clouds and that vapor with a 0.5 coil that is almost like inhaling air, as opposed to what you want as a person who's switching from smoking, which is feeling like you're getting substance in that hit. Like you want to feel like you're getting a nicotine hit, which can be hard to replicate with vaping, and I think that that's sometimes why some people have problems. Higher coil number, more like a cigarette, okay? 1.5, maybe even 2. I'm not sure if they make that, but now you know. It doesn't entirely matter what coil you get as long as it's compatible in your tank. You can see over here that the compatibility is listed. There are some coils that I believe work for multiple different tanks and multiple different brands. I'm not sure. Just make sure high number. There you go. Okay, onto the mod. The Top Tank Mini actually can be purchased with a kit with a mod as well. I've never used it, so I can't vouch for it. I think that you might need to use changeable batteries for that. I do not recommend you do that, in my opinion. I prefer a device that you can just recharge, just like your phone. The batteries are built in. You plug it in, you charge it, that's it. Many people get mods with removable batteries because they can carry the extra batteries with them, but I charge my vape like I charge my phone, you know? And having the extra battery batteries means another level of ritual involved with this new addiction. I did not want to get that involved with the ritual. It's already very addictive. I think that vaping can really help you to switch from smoking to vaping, can be very helpful, but it has a whole bunch of other rituals that have potential for addiction there too. Also, I think messing with batteries can be dangerous. Just one device, charge it with a micro USB cord, and that's it. It's good. All right. So in the end, my most favorite mod ever was the eLeaf iPower 80 watt. And I think this would be an excellent mod for you too. It's big, but it fits in your hand wonderfully. It is very rugged. I dropped mine a bunch of times. And the battery is huge. It's 5,000 mAh. mAh is what the batteries are measured in. 5,000 mAh is around about what I needed for a whole day as a heavy smoker. Depending on how much you smoke currently, you might need less. I preferred to have something bigger. For reference and size, this is the eLeaf iPower. I got a skin for it. And this is the Smock V-Fin. This is giant. This one is 5,000 mAh. This is 8,000. It's very heavy. I tended to find that this was fine. This is a beast. It's very, very large. And then we have the tiny little baby that is my final vaping kit that I'll show you later. All right, so the eLeaf iPower 80 watt. 80 watt is more than you'll ever need. In my opinion, as a smoker, I would buy this battery from canvapes.com. They look kind of dodge, they sound kind of random, but they are legitimate, excellent store. They always have discounts. Don't buy anything full price ever. I'll put the link down below for that. So the biggest thing about a mod is that you want to be able to control the wattage. The higher the wattage, the faster it burns the liquid, and the more it feeds you the vapor, which is not like a cigarette, right? You want to be able to pull the vapor out of it, take a nice long drag, and that's that gratifying part like a cigarette. So you're going to want to hit a lower wattage. In the beginning, I was vaping around 20 watts. At the end, I was vaping around 40 watts. I never ended up using the whole amount of wattage available from my device, and that's fine. I think that people use a higher wattage when they want those clouds, if you've ever seen that. You don't need that, especially if you're trying to quit smoking and just get through this. Also, the higher you burn, the faster you're going to go through your battery, and the faster you're going to go through your liquid and through your coils. On that note, the speed in which you go through your coils is affected by the kind of juice you have, how much you vape, how fast you burn, all that stuff. I typically went through a coil around once a week. So if I bought a 5-pack of coils for like $10, that was 5 weeks worth. There's a whole other ritual that people take part in by building their own coils. I didn't want anything to do with that. Avoid the ritual, keep it simple. Don't get too much stuff, just keep it simple, in my opinion. Okay, variety of mods that I had over my time. I had that Joytech Ego 1 Mega. I had a couple of those, and I would attach them to different tanks. I also had the Nicotine Cool Fire 4. I loved that thing. It was very ergonomic, but sometimes the tank did not sit flush to the mod. I had a bunch of the eLeaf iPowers. I like to have a couple of them around charged, and then I could switch them out, like having extra batteries, but without the fuss. I got that Smock V-Fin that I showed you, and then I had my sort of ultimate mod that I will show you at the end. It's not necessarily what I would use in the beginning. So eLeaf iPower 80 watt, good beginning device. All right, let's move on to juice. There's a lot of ritual in juice, so that's part of why I'm encouraging you to avoid the ritual in a lot of things, because there's a lot of ritual already in vaping. It's really fun. It smells delicious, it tastes delicious, it's really fun. Avoid the ritual as much as you can, because there's a lot. All right, e-juice is a mixture of propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin. Propylene glycol is the material that's gonna give you most of the throat hit. You might hear about some people being allergic to e-juice and stuff like that. It is propylene glycol. Apparently it's very, very, very rare, but people have an allergy to propylene glycol. Propylene glycol is thinner, more liquidy, and will give you more of a throat hit. It is easier on your coils, apparently. Vegetable glycerin is thicker, more viscous, and it's gonna give you more cloud. So you want more propylene glycol in your mixture if possible. In the very beginning, there were a couple websites that I used that you could fully customize things and do like a 70% propylene glycol to 30% vegetable glycerin mix. I don't know if those exist quite in the same way anymore, but I have some recommendations that we'll get to in a minute. Okay, Okay, first things first, you want to figure out what kind of flavor profile you have. I was personally a baked goods and dessert person. Custards, cakes, pies, cannolis, things like that. I will tell you, you might think that chocolate would taste good as a vape, but I've never found one that does. I am not partial to menthol, cinnamon, or tobacco flavored anything, but you can get those. Be careful with menthol and cinnamon because they might have an impact on your tank. That's something you want to research if your tank has any issues with stuff like that. It should be on the listing when you purchase your tank. I think if they're plastic or something, they can't handle cinnamon. All right, so you think about what kind of flavor profile you might like. You're gonna try to get a bunch of samples, okay? Some people like candy or fruit. That's not my jam. I've listed some of the places that you can get juice from down below. A lot of them have sample packs. Like Vape Wild, you can get a welcome sample pack, so you could get a couple different flavors. You wanna try something small, like 15 to 30 mil, so that if you don't like it, you're not wasting it. My ultimate favorite place to buy vape juice from was Breezy. Sign up for their email list. They have coupons and discounts all the time. 40% off was very typical. That is once you know your flavor profile and once you know what percentage nicotine you're going to be vaping at. Do not commit to something big like that until you figure that out. Typically, the cigarette alternative in milligrams for vape juice is anywhere from 11 to 24. So that's a pretty big range. I started vaping at 18 milligrams of nicotine to my vape liquid. It'll just say 18 milligrams. So that's what I started at. So what I would suggest is that you try 15 to 30 mils of e-juice in a bunch of different flavors, around about anywhere from 11 to 18 or so milligrams of nicotine. You can try Vape Wild, you can try Breezy, you can also try Mount Baker Vapor. This is where I initially started out ordering e-juice because you can customize it so much. I could not find anywhere on their site the option to do a 70-30 mix anymore of propylene glycol to vegetable glycerin. It'll be listed as PGVG, by the way. So I couldn't find that anymore, but I do think that you can do 50-50, which is something. As a side note, at the end, I was, I believe, doing 100% vegetable glycerin. Yeah, I think so. So I was 100% a vapor at the end. We'll get you there. So Mount Baker Vapor, they used to be really, really cheap. Now I think they're like so-so. Breezy's definitely the cheapest, but you can still customize a lot. Give it a try. Check out the links down below. Look on Reddit. Just type in like reputable vape juice website or something like that. And then you should be okay to order from there. Try out different flavors. Once again, small, 15 to 30 mils. Figure it out. Once you've figured out what level you vape at, buy a couple bigger bottles and commit. Give yourself 2 weeks of vaping and smoking at will. Don't worry about it, just vape and smoke for those 2 weeks. Then at the end of the 2 weeks, commit to switching. I think something that I've seen people struggle with is that they vape and smoke. So whereas before they couldn't smoke indoors, let's say, they'd be smoking outside and vaping indoors. So you can let yourself do that for the first 2 weeks, but then after that, you have to switch. You have to start switching vaping with all those times you smoke. You can set yourself reminders if you want, time to go vape at the times that you used to go smoke. You can time yourself so that you know you're doing it for long enough and getting enough nicotine or whatever. For me, it was really helpful that I had work breaks. I knew that I took a break at 10 and I took a break at 3 and then my lunch break. So I had it very delineated when I would be vaping, and I vaped for the whole period of that 15-minute break, pretty much as I smoked. Give yourself 2 weeks to do that and then make the switch. Don't let yourself continue. Don't fall back. It will become gratifying. It will. At least it did for me. And it seems to for many people. It will become gratifying. You will be able to make the switch, but don't let yourself go back to smoking. You'll have a nice month to transition. Don't let yourself go back. On that note, don't ever let yourself run out of equipment. Don't let yourself run out of vape juice. Don't run out of coils. Be careful not to break your tank. Those things are glass for the most part. I broke many of them. Get yourself a little rubber O-ring thingy that goes around the outside of the tank. Get yourself some backup glass for the tank. The last thing that you want to do is have something happen to your vape that necessitates you going back to smoking cigarettes. You are going to become a vapor. You are not going to be a smoker anymore. In the beginning, just focus on transitioning. Vape as much as you need to. Find flavors that you like. Make sure that you are able to commit to vaping. Don't stress about it, but once you are used to it, once you're committed, once you like vaping and you're good with it, consider dropping down your nicotine level. Order a bottle of the next level down and start switching it into rotation. You could start off your day with your normal level and then midday have the lower reduced nicotine level, knowing that you have your normal level on hand. Get a couple more bottles of that, start to transition your higher level out. Vaping makes it very easy to do this. I did this gradually from 18 milligrams down to 1.5. Up until the point of 1.5, you're gonna have an easier time with it because you can buy that nicotine level pre-mixed. Although the prevalence of sub-ohm vapors means that more people are vaping at a lower nicotine level because you're getting fed more liquid and more nicotine, so it's very different from when you're trying to switch. But anyways, you'll be able to buy the next level down bottle, mix it into rotation, and start to make the switch. You might not even notice it. It's kind of shocking. Like I remember when I dropped from 6 milligrams to 3, it didn't feel too bad. When I dropped from 3 to 1.5, I think that was hard. Was it? It might have been the vice versa. But either way, you can do it. You will do it. You have the flexibility to start customizing this. If it feels too difficult, mix your liquid. Get a bottle of your old liquid, a bottle of your new liquid. You're gonna wanna buy empty ketchup bottles on Amazon. These are really useful for mixing your liquids and squidging them into bottles. The bottles often come in glass or plastic. These are much easier than the glass. These are called unicorn bottles. They have a little tip like this. Have a pair of small pliers on hand. You can pop this lid off, refill it once you've mixed it, and you're good to go. If you're interested, this is the only flavor that I kept as backup for if I desperately need to vape for some reason. I kept 0 just in case. Casadega vapors can only be 1. Well, can only be 1 and can only be breakfast. As a dessert vapor, this is absolutely fantastic. So this is my desert island worst case scenario, just in case, don't want to have to buy a pack of cigarettes ever again in my life, sort of thing. I've never had to use this, but just in case. And once again, there's no nicotine in this. So if I were to break and use that, I'm not going to reignite the nicotine addiction. I'll reignite the psychological addiction, but not the nicotine. Take your time, work out what you need psychologically. I personally do not like pressure or encouragement of any kind. I was going to do this when I was going to do it. No one forced me into it. My husband never pressured me, and I actually respond very negatively to pressure and will probably go in the opposite direction. I vaped at 3 milligrams of nicotine for a good 2 years before I was ready to drop to 1.5. And the sole reason that I was able to quit like that when I was at 1.5 is because I was mixing it myself. I would buy 0 Casadega vapors and 3 milligrams Casadega vapors, mix it up in my ketchup bottles, squidge it into the 2 separate bottles, and then have 1.5. Granted, this one is actually quite expensive, so I tended to buy cheaper bottles, which I'll tell you about in a second. So I had a whole bunch of 0 lying around when I was ready to quit. There's a brand available on breezy.com. They're called Big Bottle Co. I don't actually have most of my juice and equipment because I gave it away the moment the pandemic hit. I gave it to someone who was looking to quit smoking because they were worried about their lung health. So that's also what made me think about doing this video. But Breezy, there's a brand called Big Bottle Co. and they actually have a 1.5 milligram nicotine liquid. They have a bunch of different flavors, largely desserty, I think. They're very delicious. If you get to the point of being at 1.5, that's a good option. So, you're vaping at 1.5. You finally made it. You've lowered your nicotine level by yourself, however long it took you, however long you needed it to take. It might be really quick for you, but you made it. You're at 1.5 and now you make the switch to 0. I found it really hard. All of a sudden, it wasn't gratifying. It was like I was inhaling air and I had the psychological impact of inhaling and vaping, but there was no gratification. It's okay. It's gonna be better in 3 days. That's how long it takes the physical addiction, right? 3 days to get over it. I just had to stick with that for 3 days and then the rest was psychological. Ooh, it was really hard. But I did the same thing that I did when I transitioned from smoking to vaping. I gave myself 2 weeks. 2 weeks to vape at 0 as much as I wanted. I vaped at 0 like usual. After that 2 weeks, I started to restrict my vaping. I was still vaping at 0, but I tried to increase the breaks between it. 2 hours between my last vapes. 5 hours. All of a sudden, I'd made it a whole weekend. And now it's been a year. Awesome. So we're just gonna go straight into what my ultimate vaping kit was. This is the kit that I've kept. I know I have the Big Smock V-Fin. This is because it was brand new when I quit vaping and I probably wanna sell it. I have my e-leaf iPower. This one I dropped too many times and I didn't feel comfortable just giving it away to someone. And then I have my ultimate vapors kit. This is a vapor setup for me. When you finally get to the point that you are a vapor, that you no longer need a smoker setup, this is amazing. I still think that you would benefit from having the e-leaf iPower 80 watt, but this is what I kept as my emergency if I ever have to vape kit. This is the Vaporesso Terra Nano. It's gorgeous. They come in a bunch of different colors. It's got a very advanced chipset if you're into the tech around mods. I don't care really. It's lovely. It's toteable. It has half the mAh of the e-leaf iPower 80 watt, but the same wattage. I believe this is an 80 watt as well, but it's 250 mAh, so it lasts for not that long. But I'm not a vapor anymore. I hope to never use this again, but if I do, I'm keeping this just in case. And this tank, this is a Vapor's tank. You can see that the mouthpiece is quite large. This is the Tobacco Super Tank 25 millimeter. Do not get the Tobacco Super Tank Mini. You have to change the coils with an Allen wrench and it's stupid. This one is great. You can fill the e-juice up top here. It's a top fill. It's perfect. This is absolutely excellent. This is the best tank I've ever used. It's amazing. It's a little too airy for an initial transition. If you want an amazing tank and you want to give it a shot, you might be able to switch with this, but it might be too airy. You can constrict the airflow quite a bit, but I don't know. I think it might be too airy for a beginner vape. A solid, you're a vapor and you're not going back to smoking, this is the ultimate. The coils are super cheap. I got them on Can Vapes as well. This is my in case. Okay, so that's a lot of info. I really, really hope that this was helpful to you. Know that I'm not encouraging anyone to start vaping, start smoking, anything like that. I am not encouraging the use of nicotine and tobacco products. What I am doing is hoping to provide a resource. There's a lot of stuff that's confusing. I hope that I simplified this. Timestamps are down below. All the info that you might need is down below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. If you have successes with this, I hope you share them with us. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Don't forget to embrace the infamy and subscribe. Until next time, bye!